Welcome to Fantasy Ambush. I am your host, Trevor Blanchard, and with me is Paul Kroll.
Paul. Yeah.
Paul, and
Oh,
we're gonna go right into our team assessments this week. And Paul is gonna start us off. Go ahead, Paul.
okay. So actually, I have had some people who watch and listen to our show that they would like me to be a little bit more louder and assertive. I'm like, okay, if you want me to be Stephen A. Smith, I'm gonna be Stephen A. Smith. Okay, that's what they wanted. That's what they wanted. Okay. So first things first, I'm gonna say I'm very happy about the victory. I don't care how bad Seattle is or isn't. They've always, been very mean to us. And even without Wilson, I was worried. Like it's just like when a certain team beats you that many times, they just almost like this you're just scared of like just anything happening. So it was a great, defensive win, great running, all that stuff. I was very happy with only after last week, 13 or something like that. I was crazy. No turnovers. We forced 3 turnovers. So, any day beating the Seahawks and having a 20-point win is a fun time. So Trey Lance breaks his ankle. Um, Garoppolo comes in and plays like well, like better than I've seen him in a long time. Honestly, like I'm wondering if the shoulder surgery was possibly a blessing in disguise because I haven't seen his arm that live in a while. Like he was taking some shots. He was good. So I mean, I'm excited for that. As long as he can stay healthy, I think that we still have a chance to make the playoffs and all that. So it's not the end of the world. Lance is only 22 years old. Even with his ankle surgery next year, he'll be 23. He's still super young. He's still got like his whole life and football life ahead of him. Like I feel like people are a bit like exaggerating. Like they're almost acting like his life is like over. Like it was a bad injury. It sucks. But Dak came back from basically the same thing. So I'm not. I'm more upset about the. I wish he could just get playing time. That's what sucks is the development issue.
Yes.
Um, so a lot of people listening have probably already seen my posts about Kyle. So I'm not going to go on this whole rant about and say everything. But basically, just in short, I feel like the certain people on the Niners get attacked for our shortcomings from John Lynch to even Jimmy Garoppolo to even like Debo Samuel, our owner. And I think it's time to start shedding a light on Kyle Shanahan. And I want to make it known that like this is my guy. Like I think he's like the face of the franchise. Like even as a head coach, like he's I think he's great in a lot of ways. I think his ego at times is a bit too high, and he acts in a way very similar to Bill Belichick. But here's the problem: you haven't won a Super Bowl. Like Belichick has that right to be how he is because he's earned it. Even for example, Sean Payton, who's has been labeled like kind of an asshole to media. Oh, by the way, disclaimer. I usually try to keep this professional, but there's going to be some bad words in this. Okay, so if you're listening with some kids, so anyways, okay. It starts off with things that I've always defended. Like people put a lot of the Falcons blowing the 28-3 lead Super Bowl on Shanahan, because he was the OC. He decided to not run the ball for most of the second half, and that was obviously a mistake. And I was like, oh, he's an offensive coordinator, he's not the head coach, so he's just trying to do his job. So I was getting past. And then in 2019, in the Super Bowl, we have a 10-point lead over the Chiefs with 9 minutes left, and the offense falls apart. I've always kind of been like, hey, listen, it's Kansas City Chiefs. They're good. Give Patrick Mahomes his due. He's a fucking beast. So that's dope. Stop. Like, I always feel like people rather look for somebody to blame than to give, like, respect to. So I always look like, no. Listen, let's give, the people that played well their due credit. But then last year, it really got to me in the NFC title game when we have a 10-point lead with about 10 minutes left against the Rams, and the offense is falling apart. That's okay. But the one stat that hurts my feelings is Deebo Samuel did not get one touch in the last 9 minutes of that game. And that's where you're like, what's the issue here? At least if we could have gotten a first down or two, we could have, run the clock. Everybody looks at the whole Tart dropped interception, and that was terrible. But even if you would have gotten that, there was still about 9 minutes in the game, and the Rams defense was on fire. The Niners offense was looking bad. But if you were just given Deebo the ball a few times, I feel like we would have won that game, honestly. I feel like he can get a first down. He can do something. And so, it's starting to become a pattern with Kyle, like his play calling late in big games, because he's a guy who likes to script the first 20 to 25 plays of a game every game. And it's almost like watching art, where you just see it seems like every play is working. But then late in games, the Niners always become very conservative. We start running the ball, and then if that doesn't work, it's bad. And then, like I said, with just like the media, he's just losing grace for me. He's very combative with anybody who asks even a fair question. It's like a reporter for the Niners asked, why would you run Lance on 2nd and 8 up the gut? And he responds with the question, oh, sorry, 4. It's like, what? I mean, he just asked you, a fair question. We're trying to figure out what the issue is. I don't blame the injury on Kyle 100% because it's football. I get that, shit happens.
Yeah, but it was a bad call.
Risk versus it was, yeah, and it's the risk versus reward thing. What do you think is going to happen if he's running up the gut, for 4 or 5 yards? What is special about that play? Of course, there's a chance he can break it, and that's for a big game. But I think that's all. And then it's we had Deebo Samuel, who we decided a bunch of money to. This is his job to, that's why he's so special, is he can catch a ball and run. And we have 5 backs on the active roster. Why are we making Lance run the ball up the middle? And it's just it starts to pile up as what. That's the frustrating thing is I just would like for Kyle to be listen, this is what I was thinking, and either it was right or wrong. At least I would like to know that, but he's so he won't even admit, he doesn't seem to feel bad for Lance. And in a whole, there's some how do I say this? There's some dysfunction in this locker room, and it's been kind of kept quiet. But so last week, Lance got sacked, and you saw the whole offensive line did not help him up, and that's weird. And then in this game, when Lance got hurt, listen, everybody's sad. Everybody feels bad. I get that. When Garoppolo came in, the Niners had like a different gear. Like they were like better instantly, and not so much from Garoppolo's play, but everybody looked like energized. Like, oh, this is our guy. And I understand that with Garoppolo, like he's been there for 5 years. Like most of these dudes on his team have gotten paid with Garoppolo. Like he's kind of engineered all that stuff, and so I guess in the long run, it was smart for the season to keep Garoppolo around because we'd be in bad in bad shit right now without him. But it's almost like Lance never had a chance because Garoppolo is, he's loved so much that the team never kind of thing. And so just as a whole, I just almost wonder, is it time for a new direction? Like, it's like, I understand that we're good, and like people, I have some comments with people like, man, I wish I had a few NFC title game appearances in a Super Bowl, and I get that, but like when you're the better team and you lose, like, it feels weird. Like, when you basically dominated the game for most of the game, and then you lose, you can't really like feel fantastic about that. And so, just kind of to something, I was like, Sean Payton, he's retired, but he's a person that I'd be interested in. He's won a Super Bowl. I want a head coach who's done it. Like, I feel like there's so many excuses made for Shanahan. He's the offensive genius, and like I respect and like I get all that. But at some point, it's like, bro, shut up and win the whole thing. Like at some point, like if you're not like Sean Payton was the offensive genius of like his time, and then he won a Super Bowl. And sure, they'll say he had Breeze, but Breeze wasn't really much before Sean Payton. Like he was like a solid quarterback in San Diego, and then he went full on. And I'm not taking anything away. I feel like it's 50-50 coach and quarterback. Like Sean Payton elevates.
Well,
and
Drew Brees' injury elevated his mindset about the game too, though. So it took him to a place where he was like, I never want to go back to that. And
yeah, absolutely.
Brees was not talented. Like, look, I'm not saying he didn't have talent. Yeah. I'm saying when you look at Aaron Rodgers and you look at Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers is talented. Drew Brees is methodical, right? Drew Brees is that insane guy on the field who's accurate, but who's practiced it 100,000 times.
Yeah.
just to get it right. And if he gets it wrong, he practices it another 100,000 times. And like Drew Brees is hard work and will. And when he had the arm, he was considered to be one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the game. So, but it just goes to show, like you're 100% right on Sean Payton and Brees came together, and I think what happened was is Sean Payton's brand of offense leaned heavy on the quarterback. Now they like run and stuff like that too, which every offense leans heavy on the quarterback, right? But he finally had a quarterback that could take the full advantage of the offense, and he had the accuracy. And honestly, I think Brees allowed Sean Payton to be able to be as aggressive as he wanted to be when he wanted to be, right? So anyway, back to the topic at hand, the 49ers and wanting a coach, right?
Yeah, it's a bit interesting that Sean Payton and Garoppolo went to the same school. Also, that's a small little tidbit. But it's just like, I don't know, like it's almost like the Niners are so talented at this point where it's like I care less about this magical offensive scheme and more about a guy who will make the right calls when it's time. Like a guy who just doesn't like he doesn't get stressed out, he doesn't freak out, like he just stays on path. And I mean, I understand that there's not that many head coaches right now that even have Super Bowl rings. So, it's not easy to find these guys.
It's a hard thing to do. But
Yeah,
I think what you need to point to, and I think you make a good point, is that like let's stop glorifying Shanahan as this all powerful, can't make a mistake guy, and let's call him out for his mistakes because he's making some. And look,
yeah,
it in this game, it's hard to sit here and say anything because he won,
yeah,
and it was a decisive victory. And he's been successful in the past, so it's not like you can't say he's not a really good coach.
yeah.
Um, but maybe he does have some stuff he needs to work on, right? Like even
And
like
like
I love Sean Payton, but sometimes his aggressiveness would like
is
completely like
overboard. Yeah,
like and that was part of the issue. But you knew that the few chances it failed, there was way more times that it succeeded. So you had to
yeah.
go with the process.
And I guess basically where I'm kind of coming around this whole thing is, oh, I was too hard on Garoppolo and not hard enough on Shanahan. Like it's kind of like that's kind of how everybody looks at it. Is like, oh, Garoppolo left Super Bowl, Garoppolo left that, and it's part of the game like he has to be better. But at the end of the day, like he is who he is, and it's up to the head coach to either make him better or find somebody else. And you
Well, I
know,
mean that's what they tried to do technically, right?
yeah. But then it's like, were they all in? Like, I don't know the facts. Like nobody but Shanahan and Lynch know. But there's a bunch of reports, that maybe they valued Mac Jones more, maybe they wanted Fields more, and it's like
I mean
if you're
that
gonna
yeah.
if you're gonna give away 3 first-round picks, like I'm not mad at the trade up. I'm not mad at the pick. I'm mad that you weren't fully committed. Like I think that Garoppolo should have been cut the day after that pick, and you should have go all in. And what happens happens. Like I just feel like you just kept kicking the can down the road, and like now next year, Garoppolo is an official free agent, and Lance is coming off of an ankle, a full broken ankle. It's like now we're like in a worse situation than we were before, and so like I feel like Garoppolo and Lance are the two like good guys in the situation. Like they both handle it well, and they've both kind of been treated badly.
Mm-hmm.
And and Shanahan is just always like, oh, we'll figure it out. And like, of course, I mean, he's done some great stuff with like some terrible quarterbacks like CJ Beathard and Nick Mullins and stuff. So like I said, I just want to say I still believe that we can win the Super Bowl with Shanahan. Like I still think he's a top 5 to 7 head coach, but it worries me when like you don't. He has all the power in the franchise. Like he's the guy. Like there's nobody to say, hey, maybe you shouldn't do this. Like they're like, he has all the power, and it's like, how can you ever be told that you're wrong when you're?
I mean,
it's just,
it'll just take a long time, and it's hard to say if he's continually successful. It's really hard to ever say that he'll be given the boot or anything like that. Not saying that's what you want, but like, look, there's give and takes to the head coach having that much power. Sean Payton had that much power, and but he made good use of it, right? And at the same time, it wasn't just him. When Breeze played, it was him and Sean Payton and Mickey Loomis and making decisions about weapons and teams. Like they would discuss these things. It was a team effort. The Saints have a really good organization, and they gave Sean Payton the keys after he won a Super Bowl, right? So it's hard because it's like if he makes a mistake, nobody can really hold him accountable. But he is being successful with what his decisions are. So either he'll eventually learn from his mistakes, because once you lose enough, NFC championships, But I think the point is once you've lost enough, deep playoff runs, I guess you could say. At least you make it
Mhm.
past the first or second round. Maybe you're either in the NFC Championship or right before that. Um, Eventually you got to start asking, okay, what can we do to take us over the top, right? Um,
Yeah, that's the big
I
thing.
As you
And
said, we have blamed Garoppolo in the past, and I
yeah,
still to some extent do. He
yeah,
Look, I'm not. I agree. I think he's a good quarterback. I just don't think
mm,
he's a great quarterback.
no,
He'll have flashes of great play. They're
yeah,
just not at a consistently high level, and maybe
consistent
it
enough.
has something to
Yeah,
do with the offensive scheming. But like, I
mhm.
don't think he'll ever be at the top tier discussions. But he's still a good quarterback. I think you can
No,
still win with him. But the difference is
yeah,
if you
that's
don't
the
have
big
an
thing.
elite quarterback in the Super Bowl, then what you really need is great coaching to use the weapons that
Yeah,
you have to make that push, right? Look, you say what you want about Sean Payton. They won a Super Bowl, yeah. Look, everybody's gonna argue Gate, whatever the hell you want to argue. Look, you can say that all day. The fact of the matter
yeah.
is the Saints played really good. The defense was like 27th ranked in the league for like
Yeah,
yards allowed, 20, sixth or 25th for points allowed, but they were number one in turnovers, and that turnover ratio was plus ridiculous.
that makes a big
And
difference.
they
Yeah.
had an elite quarterback. And what did Sean Payton decide to do? The very intro of this fantasy podcast is Sean Payton saying we're going to run ambush, right? It's one of the
Hmm.
reasons this fantasy podcast is named Fantasy Ambush. It was just inspired by that. And what did he do? He went out and he kicked the onside kick right after the half. Right? He made some gutsy calls, but they worked and they
Making that.
practiced them
Yeah.
relentlessly. So maybe with Kyle Shanahan, it'll come to a point where either he's going to have to look at himself and say, all right, look, I've been successful for a long time, but we just can't seem to get over the hump. It's not the quarterback. It's not the defense. It's not the players. Who is it? It's got to be me, right? And hopefully he does that.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, maybe we're just being gun shy. I don't know.
Yeah.
Every
Uh,
every great coach that's ever played has made some bad decisions during games,
yeah.
right? It happens.
I'd say I'd say to kind of sum it up because we got some other topics is number one, he has a losing record as a head coach. That's not good, and he still has never made it to the playoffs in back-to-back years.
Yeah,
And so that's all I want. Is some consistency. Is to because it's like it seems like the excuse is he has Jimmy Garoppolo or he's had backup quarterbacks. Okay, well that's his fault. Like he's the head coach and he has full power. If he wanted Kirk Cousins instead of Jimmy, like he could have found a way to make it happen. Like that's just
yeah,
another like talking point. Um, so it's just there's a difference of expectations. Like when Sean Payton won the Super Bowl with God, you know the Saints now aren't the same.
Yeah, for example, like my dad used to call, like when I was a kid, he would call the Saints the Aints, and I was like, well, what is that about? And then I started to see, besides Archie Manning, the Saints had a pretty bad history, and then all of a sudden with Sean Payton and Breeze and the whole hurricane stuff, it got it got like it completely changed. And so I think when he won the Super Bowl, and made him relevant, Saints fans and the community were just happy to be, have a good team and be successful. And the Niners fan base and the media is so like impatient and angry. Like all I think about is like, okay, the 80s and the 90s, we won Super Bowls and it's been 30 years since the last Super Bowl. And like, we can't, like, for example, I would say too, like if, say, Garoppolo has had the same career, but it was on the Bears, I think he would be looked at a higher light. Like I think it's like the Niners, like every time it's the Niners quarterback, it comes with like you better be Montana or Young. Like
Yeah.
it's a very unfair expectation.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing with Shanahan. Like Bill Walsh. Even a lot of people still have feelings about Harbaugh. Like, oh, is Shanahan even as good as Harbaugh was? So to end it, this is something that we will definitely be talking about throughout the year on this podcast. Just looking at how Shanahan and Garoppolo, because a small little like dirty secret that nobody really talks about is Shanahan and Garoppolo do not fuck with each other. They have one of the worst relationships for a head coach and quarterback.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually known that they do not have any off-season communication. Like he won't answer texts.
Golly.
Yeah, so they aren't friends at all. But I
Yeah.
think that in the scheme of this, I think everybody wants to win. Garoppolo would love to win a Super Bowl. Shanahan would love to win a Super Bowl. So I think that this can all work. And we're gonna smack the Denver Broncos. So let's talk
Yeah.
about the Saints and
All
Buccaneers
right.
game.
Oh, let's see. We got to see old school Jameis, right?
Yeah,
It was unfortunate. Look,
yeah,
man, it really sucks to see my Saints dominate that game for 3 quarters and then
and
stink it up towards the end, right? 5 turnovers
yeah,
during the game, most of them in the fourth quarter. A fight broke out. Um, that the game was pretty close, 3-0, 3-3 for a good portion of the game.
yeah,
I didn't like how the conservative some of the play calling was. What I really didn't like is those deep passes that Winston consistently kept throwing to Olave, thinking that they were going to work eventually, right?
yeah,
The one time that Olave was actually in a position to catch it, he caught it, and then he fumbled it. So, and this is
yeah,
like 5 of those passes, right? And look, I'm all for the deep ball. Like I'm all for the dagger, right? We used to see it all the time with Breeze back in the day. Like it's a fun play, but at the same time, it's like, look, Olave is going to be a good wide receiver, but he's still learning. He's still got some stuff to
yeah,
do. He was having a hard time creating separation. A lot of our receivers were having a hard time creating separations. The Buccaneers have a very good defense, and
yeah,
they like playing the bump game. Throwing people off their rhythm. They're really good at that. And my problem with the deep balls was just, yes, Winston overthrew him, but they were never really, it would have been a 50-50 ball at best, and I'm not quite sure Olave is that guy yet, right?
yeah,
I do like seeing the fact that Michael Thomas is running a lot more go routes. He's not just doing his slants like he used to do. He's involved. I would have liked to have seen Landry get more involved. Look, he was
yeah,
really good week 1. Why start avoiding him? It's Olave had like 12 to 14 targets and only 5 catches.
Mm.
And I'm just like, look, quit throwing him the ball. I was saying it
yeah,
in the third quarter. I was like, look, if he's open, sure, but like, quit trying to force him the ball. And look, out of those 14 targets, most of them weren't catchable. It's not like Olave was bad. It was just,
yeah,
why are you throwing it to him? Like you could throw it to Landry 3 yards down the field, at least get some positive yardage. So
Mhm.
some of it was the coaches, being conservative play calling in the first half. I really wanted to see us get that touchdown, and we didn't. We didn't really score till the end, and then
yeah,
Winston just basically saying, F everything, and just trying to throw those deep passes to whoever, trying to force the ball, kept throwing interceptions.
yeah,
Kept throwing interceptions. The pick six definitely hurt. That changed
yeah,
the whole momentum of the game. Um,
Mhm.
but it just snowballed. And then even then, okay, so they start driving down the field. So look, got momentum. Maybe we could do something. There's not a lot of time. We're gonna have to onside kick it. Maybe we get lucky. He throws another interception, right? Trying to force the ball.
Mhm.
Um, look, I know games like this are gonna happen, because it
Yeah,
is Winston, and like while I do think better games are ahead, and like he'll bounce back. Yeah, I'm aggravated
yeah,
with him. All Saints fans are aggravated with him. Look, he's still a good quarterback. He just needs to reel himself back in and understand that, look, quit chasing it. Quit chasing it. Like, make smarter decisions. Be more mindful of the field. Look, we're gonna go back into Tampa second game and beat them. Okay, it's gonna happen. I'm gonna call it right now.
Easily.
But it was definitely an upsetting loss. And like I said, that last quarter just snowballed. But fantasy wise, out of my 6 leagues, I'm 5-1 this week.
Hey.
So I think the Vampire League's the only one I lost in. Everything else, I did not. So yay.
A few takes I have about that game was Kamara was a bigger absence than I thought he would be. I didn't think. I think that's really where the Saints lack either a good, dependable tight end when Kamara's not out there. I like Winston doesn't have like the easy throw, a dump off. So he starts playing hero ball. And I think, those 4 fractures in his back definitely probably affected him a bit. He was
maybe, but I'm not using that as a cop out.
Yeah. Well, no, but I still want to say he's tough though. That's the most quarterbacks wouldn't even, try. Maybe Andy Dalton in that game would have been a better option, just because I feel like the Saints could have beat the Bucs with just like field goals and safe drives, with like an Andy Dalton type of style, than just throwing it deep. But yeah, I'm not worried about Winston. The Saints are still trying to kind of figure out their whole offense and groove. The Saints defense is still elite. Tom Brady still got his ass kicked, so he didn't do much special. It was the Bucs defense. It was
a heavy defensive game. Oh
yeah,
and I do definitely want to like highlight that the Saints defense played a lot better. A lot better. They were tackling. The pass coverage was great. The only problem I think I had is they weren't getting the pressure on Brady that I've seen in previous years. I don't know if it's maybe just because Cam Jordan's a little bit older. Maybe the O-line was just showing out that game. It's not that they didn't pressure him, but like they didn't get the sacks that I thought they were going to get, right? So.
That's who the Saints got next week.
The Saints play the Panthers next week.
Okay.
So
man,
that's going to be probably a tough
poor
game.
Panthers. Yeah, but also the Panthers have been having a problem with ending games on a win. They've been in both games. They've been looking good, and then they've kind of let it slip away. So
well, I heard a rumor in the Twitter sphere that their coach, what's his name? Matt Rule? Is it Matt Rule?
Rule, yeah.
Might be on the hot seat if a couple more of these games happen.
I can see it. I can see it. Yeah.
They do have him under contract for like the next 6 years, but being that the owner of the Panthers is like the second richest owner in the NFL, he's willing. He might be willing to just say, hey, you know what, So just keep an eye on that. Look, man, I don't want to take anything away from Baker Mayfield. I think we all know what he is. But he's a solid quarterback. They have
he's been
weapons.
Solid so far.
Yeah, he's been solid. They just need to do something to turn it around, right?
But it's just been back-to-back losses, at the end, shit happens. I mean, who would have thought that the New York Giants would be 2-0?
You know what? I'm happy for the Giants.
I agree.
Daniel Jones still sucks, but I'm happy for the Giants.
Whoa, hold on. Back-to-back games, Daniel Jones has had the fourth quarter comeback.
Okay, that's great. Let him start playing. Start playing consistently all game long, Daniel, and maybe I'll start riding the pine for you a little bit, right? So anyway,
also I'd say, man, the one thing is Galladay has really phoned in whatever he's doing. Like a lot of time people will like shit on a player, but like I can see Galladay is half-assing routes and blocking. Like he's not even attempting. And that's crazy because he was such a beast with the Lions. But
Yeah, but
this is what can happen when you pay somebody who more than possibly what they're
they're worth.
what
But
they
then
deserve. Yeah,
also
worth. Yeah.
he's on a bad team, and or at
But
least he was last
yeah,
year, and so maybe the motivation
I
wasn't
get
there,
that.
which is terrible. But like at the same time, it's
Yeah,
I do feel like players should be
yeah,
giving their all. Like you
yeah.
should be
Like
giving it your all every play. That's what you're getting paid millions to do.
I actually get it. I mean, at the end of the day, these dudes are humans. I get that for last year, but this year the Giants are 2-0. They're in first place with the Eagles. Like,
Yep.
why wouldn't you be giving your all now? That's weird to me.
I
But
agree, and I don't
yeah,
know why. Maybe he can't.
yeah,
Maybe he's washed up. I don't know.
yeah,
Right? I'm not really
yeah,
worried about it. I like Sterling Shepard.
yeah.
We'll talk about that him in a
Saquon's
little
been
while,
going off.
and Saquon too. So
Yeah.
let's go ahead and pull up our fantasy pick'em that we did last week. I'll go first while you pull that up. I went 9-6 week 1 because of a tie. I went 9-7 in week 2. So I'm really rocking the
Consistency.
consistency there. I'm 18-13 overall, but
Yeah.
I am ranked. Let's see, what am I ranked? I am ranked 4th in the pick'em that we're in of almost 50 people.
Hey,
So
not bad.
I'm fighting it. The
Yeah.
games that I won't go over the ones I won. I'm gonna just notice the ones that I lost, and then we'll move on.
Mhm.
Jets over Browns. Look, I've never been so happy to lose a pick'em in my life. I like seeing the Jets. I like seeing the Jets come up, and we're gonna talk about them a little bit later on too. It was a crazy win, 31-30. Good job, Jets. Saints. Obviously, I picked them to win. Tough loss. We already talked about that. I picked the Steelers over the Patriots, and come to find out, the Patriots dogged them, and I'm kind of happy about that because I don't
Yeah.
really like the Steelers. So
Yeah.
I'm happy that they lost. Look, should have listened to Paul here. I should have went with the historical facts and data. The Jaguars monkey stuffed the Colts. And look, I'm gonna go ahead and say this. I said maybe not on here. I don't know if I said it on here, but I told plenty of people I don't think Matt Ryan's gonna be that great. I don't think he's gonna be any better than he was with the Falcons. He has not looked good for the Colts. But I
He's been
will
worse.
but I will say he didn't have Pittman, right? So,
Mhm.
he didn't have his number 1 wide receiver. The next best wide receiver ain't nothing special. The one thing I am concerned is I think Jonathan Taylor only had like what 10 or 11 carries.
No, well, he actually had a bunch of carries, but small yard. It was 17 carries for 56
Oh,
yards.
okay. Yeah,
So
so
he just
that's a
got
rough.
stuffed. Yeah.
That's yeah. He just got stuff. That's rough. Shut down Jonathan Taylor. No Michael Pittman. That's the recipe to beat the Colts, I guess.
Yeah.
Moving
Yeah.
on, in one of the best fantasy games, best football games I've seen this year so far, which isn't saying much, but I think it'll hold true. I picked the Ravens to beat the Dolphins, and
Same.
you know what? I'm not mad that the Dolphins won. I'm kind of happy for them. Look, I've been gung ho about saying, hey, Tyreek Hill's going to be a good wide receiver for the Dolphins. Uh, I said, look, Waddle might be more fantasy relevant than he was last year, and everybody was like, oh no, Tyreek Hill's there. Waddle might not be as good. Nope. Apparently, it doesn't matter because
Yeah.
look, and don't get me wrong, Jalen
Both
Hurts
of
really,
them.
yeah, not Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa,
Went
uh,
off.
went
Oh,
off
wow.
and showed some of his spiciness that we were hoping to see. And I'm happy to see it because, like I said, I love
Mhm.
seeing new young quarterbacks show me something. He went off, and both him and Tyreek had very similar statistics, right? Two
Yeah. Yeah.
touchdowns, what was it, like 100 and something yards?
150, 170. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the only difference was the yards, and Tyreek had a little bit more,
Yeah.
right? Um,
Mhm.
I was not mad that I lost this pick 'em. I'm just gonna go ahead and say that. Uh,
Mhm.
I picked the Bengals to beat the Cowboys. Apparently Cooper
Same.
Rush is that dog. At
It's the
least for the
guy.
first,
It's that
at least for
guy.
the first half, right? The second half it was kind of inconsistent. But look, and I really want to stress this. I want to quit seeing NFL teams take their foot off the gas when they are beating somebody. And this week we saw three different teams, three different games where a team was winning dominantly until the fourth quarter. and then they lose, right?
Mhm.
It happens with the Ravens. It happened with the Bengals, not the Bengals. It happened with the Ravens. It happened with the Raiders, I think, and then
Raiders, yeah.
there was one other game. I can't
What
remember.
was the other game?
I can't remember. I don't
Oh
think
yeah, it was the Browns game.
Oh, the Browns game.
Browns
Correct.
and Jets.
Correct.
Yeah.
So,
Two
I just want
touchdowns in a minute and a half.
yeah, I just want to point out that like as soon as you start playing prevent D, as soon as you start running the ball 2 times, passing the ball short 1 time, and then punting, you're asking the other team to run it up on you, right?
Yeah.
And as a Saints fan, of someone who watched Breeze do it 100 times, he will put up points on you. And not that all these other quarterbacks are that good, but like stop doing it. Stop doing the prevent D. Stop doing the let's just run the ball the clock out. Bro, no, you got a whole quarter and a half left to play. Play the ball, or you're gonna lose. And I'm wondering how many times is it gonna take these teams to get burned before they realize that. Don't take your foot off the throttle. Don't do it. All right. Last game that I got wrong was Raiders versus Cardinals, right? Raiders lost. Look, man, the Cardinals won at the last second. Kyler Murray pulled something out his butt. Look, man, the Raiders are going to get it together. Honestly, they played really well against the Cardinals in the last seconds, except for one play, and that's all it took.
Yeah.
And actually, it was some costly penalties that helped them along. But I watched them, Kyler Murray have to throw it away or miss or several times, right? Several times, and he just couldn't do it. Look, I don't like this Cardinals team right now. I'm not starting any of their wide receivers. I think, maybe start Kyler Murray, but I think you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
So that's just something there. All right, Paul, go ahead and go over. What was your week 2 record? And what is?
So I had a much better week. Went 9-7.
Nice. So me and you pretty much have the same record this week.
Yeah.
So you probably climbed up the leaderboard just a little bit, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I am now 17th.
Nice. Out
ranked.
of 43. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm 16-15 now. So, as long as I'm over 500, that's good. I started out rough and missed 6 of the first 7 games, and then I went on the streak where I got almost everything right. I definitely had the Browns winning, but that didn't happen. I'm happy that I picked the Lions to beat the Commanders. I felt good about that. I definitely picked the Saints against the Buccaneers, but that didn't happen. I picked the Panthers over the Giants. That was a miss. I picked the Steelers over the Patriots. That was a miss. But then my fortune started to change. I picked the Jaguars over the Colts. I went against my own team and I picked the Baltimore Ravens to win. Then some easy games came up. Rams over the Falcons, easy. Niners over the Hawks, easy. And again, man, the Dallas over the Bengals. Like, I feel good for Dallas, but the big story is the Bengals. I expected a Super Bowl hangover, but this is worse than I expected.
That current O line might be worse than the one they had last year. To be honest with you.
And they spent a bunch of money on getting some studs. So we got to asking the question: is Burrow holding on to the ball for too long? I think we got to start looking at some stuff, and seeing, because after a while you'll be like, something's going on here.
Yeah, well, I watched the Bengal Cowboys game, and look, the Cowboys defense is good, and they were bringing the pressure.
It is good, yeah.
They couldn't,
especially the
Bengals O line couldn't. The Bengals O line couldn't stop that pass rush. They couldn't pick up blitzers. Like, I watched a play where a blitzer just went right past the guy, offensive lineman, and just smoked Burrow. So like, look, I don't want to quite blame Burrow yet. Like, you can't really do nothing when they snap the ball and you literally get sacked like right there. or you take one step and get hit. Like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say it ain't his fault. I'm just gonna say that O-line needs to get better. They need to do something coaching wise. They need to.
I just think that Burrow does have a tendency of looking for the
big play,
big
right?
shot, often. Yeah. So then Denver beat Houston, but Denver did not look very good. Houston so far looked like a solid team so far. So that's, they've been fighting. I had picked Arizona over the Raiders. Packers over Bears was easy. Bills over Titans was easy, and I was confident that the Eagles were going to beat the Vikings. So far, good. It was a pretty good day of football. Like I said, the only kind of shocking was the Bengals just looking bad, and then I was impressed by how the Patriots played the Steelers, and I'm wondering if it's time. Oh, I was going to say, I don't know if you saw that Malik Willis came in for the Titans.
I saw that
last night.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, but obviously you can't blame that game on Tannehill. Like the Bills are just a force.
You can't.
Right now, it is what it is.
The Titans couldn't handle that. Like people can say whatever they want. Like they just that team is just dominant, and they're going to remain dominant. So all right, is that all your games?
Yep.
All right, so what we're gonna do tonight, just to give us some space from the Thursday night game, was we'll review the Thursday night's game now, and then I'm gonna talk about fantasy people on the waiver wires that maybe you should look up or see if they're available in your league. You could add to that list once I'm done. That way we can see, maybe we could pick up on different guys that we're not aware of. So let's go ahead, and it's going to be the Steelers versus Browns Thursday night game on Amazon Prime, right? Should be an exciting game, right? It's a division game.
Yeah.
The Steelers aren't quite up to par.
Defensive game.
It's going to be a defensive game, which the Steelers might lose because, man, TJ Watt not being there, you could see a difference, right? It hurts bad. But it is also the Browns. Which look, I got to give props to Trubisky getting the ball out. Not Trubisky. Trubisky's the Steelers quarterback. Brissett getting the ball out. Amari Cooper had him a hell of a game, over 100 yards, touchdowns. Like
fantasy
guy. In case you Amari Cooper owners are out there, look, I think Amari Cooper is going to be very Amari Cooper. If you've owned him in the past, you know what I'm saying. He's going to have some really great weeks, and he's going to have some not great weeks. And you're probably flexing him out. Look, if you can sell him right now for a good price, sell him. Please, just let him go. Look, he's got 100-something yards and a touchdown this week. Like, you want him, right? And people are hurting for wide receivers in some leagues. So, fleece them for a tight end. Get a mid-tier running back. It doesn't matter. Get a different wide receiver. I don't care. Someone you like. If you can trade them, do so. If you can't, well, that's fine.
Because I think people sometimes get a bit too attached to name value or like number one guy, but really, if you can find a second receiver in a high passing offense, sometimes that's more valuable than a number one guy in a
So like if Gabe Davis is a little beat up right now, but if you can go get Gabe Davis, I'd trade Amari Cooper for him. Personally, I would do that. I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying I would. So that's just something to talk about. That being said, Amari. Yeah.
I guess I'll say I guess I'll give my tips on that game. I think that they're both kind of like equal teams. They're both going to run the ball. I guess it's who you trust more quarterback right now. I have to lean towards Brissett a bit more because he's shown to be more effective. I wonder if it's time to at least see what Pickett can do in small time. I mean, you got him in the first round for a reason. I'm a big Mitch guy, but so far he hasn't been bad, but he hasn't done enough to really show any excitement. And I think that the Browns just have more firepower with Nick Chubb and Hunt, and I think that the Browns defense is a bit better, and also that defense can cause more, turnovers or points, all that good stuff.
Okay, so if you had to pick a
but
winner,
also Thursday, Browns, definitely Browns. Yeah,
right? You're going Browns.
yeah.
I'm leaning towards
Thursday Night Football, so anything.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards the Browns also, and I'm gonna go ahead and say I will lock them in my pick 'em.
Yeah.
So it will be the Browns for both of us. Let's go over fantasy relevant players in this game. I'll start with the Browns, and we can go to the Steelers after that. I'm not starting Jacoby Brissett. I don't think anybody should. He had 43 yards rushing. That was nice, but 229 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 1 int. Like, he's not worth starting at
Average,
quarterback. Not even average, below average.
Yeah.
All right, Nick Chubb is a guaranteed start. Look, he dazzled and wowed with 3 touchdowns in his game against the Jets. That's great. You're not going to probably see 3 touchdowns. You might see 1. But what I did like was 17 carries for 87 yards. He averaged 5 yards a carry. And he did also have 3 catches for 26 yards, right? So that's nice. That's an extra 5.5 points. Kareem Hunt, 13 rushes for 58 yards. Impressive enough. Still 4.5 yards a carry. But he only had 2 catches for 16 yards. So Kareem Hunt was kind of the dud running back this week. Chubb was kind of the running back last week, which he had 140 yards rushing week 1, but he's just fantasy-wise, it hurts,
Yeah. I'll say if Hunt is your flex with that stat line, you're still going to get 13 points around that. So, that's not a bad flex.
Yeah. So,
option.
And I will say this, you could start Kareem Hunt as an RB2, and he's going to let you down some weeks, but he's going to be amazing. He had 20-plus points week 1.
Show up. Yeah.
Right? So, would I prefer to flex him? Yes. Or at least RB2, that's fine. Look, I'm starting both of these running backs. If I have one of them, I'm starting them. I'm just going to go ahead and say that. The only other start I had, Amari Cooper. He's going to get targets, right? He had 10 targets in this previous game. He caught 9 of them. He'll probably have another 10 targets in the next game against the Steelers.
Yeah.
So, I'm not saying it's the easiest start with Amari Cooper, but you're going to. So, as for the Steelers, let's see. Look, Najee Harris last week did not have a good running game. Luckily, he still caught 5 catches for 40, so he got you 9 points there, plus another almost 5 on the ground. So 14 points somewhere around there. No touchdowns.
Still fine.
It's fine. The Patriots defense is solid, so I'm not gonna sit here and say they probably game plan to just take away Najee, right?
Yeah.
And for the most part, it was successful. He'll have better weeks. He'll have worse weeks. Maybe it's the injury. Maybe it's the O-line. Who knows? You're still starting Najee. You still pay too high of a price tag not to start him. You're going to have weeks where I think I'll put it this way. I'm confident he's going to get double-digit points every week. You just might get lower scale end of that sometimes, and it's going to be upsetting. Yeah. But then he'll go and have a 20-point game, and you'll be fine with it, right? So I'm starting Najee Harris against the Browns. That's a tough defense, but you just have to do it. He'll probably catch 5 more catches, right?
Yeah.
So as long as he gets the passing work that he does, I'm fine with it.
Everything's fine, yeah.
Yeah. Who else? Let's see. I don't think I'm starting Chase Claypool.
No.
Right? I don't
even have him on any of my teams.
I don't have him on any of my teams either, but he's not getting a whole lot of work.
Yeah. Some people are very high on him, and I just have never seen it personally.
I think he's a good wide receiver. I just don't think the quarterback talent's there to use him appropriately. And as long as that happens, and as long as Deontay Johnson's there, I don't think Claypool's ever going to see what he needs to see. All right. As far as Deontay Johnson, I'm probably starting him, but I'm flexing him out. Yeah. You're going to flex him.
Flex. A receiver 2 ain't that bad, but yeah. Flex.
You're hoping for a touchdown, right? If you think that Deontay Johnson is going to get a touchdown versus the Browns, then go ahead and wide receiver 2. That's fine. I'm saying I think flex is probably the safe bet. He had 6 catches, 57 yards on 10 targets last week.
Yeah.
That's 11.
Not bad. Not
11,
good.
almost 12 points. It's not really that good, but
fine.
you weren't pissed off, but you were just kind of disappointed.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I just want to say that I feel like both tight ends are good sleeper tight ends if you need to start. Njoku he's been playing a lot more in the slot this year, so he's getting some more targets. And however you pronounce the name on the Steelers,
Freiermuth.
Freiermuth. I think he's super talented. I just have to kind of get him going. I think either tight end is a good, like, if you don't have anybody else.
Yeah, but I will say I do think this game is going to be a low-scoring game. I don't think anybody's shaking
16,
the Raptors.
13.
Somewhere around there.
16,
like
13,
if someone told me the points for this game was 30, I'd take the under. Right. So I think it could be that kind of game. So look, don't get your fancy hopes up. Just keep everything in mind. All right, so we'll go ahead and finish tonight out with fantasy ad drops or just guys that we've been scoping out. I'll give you my list first, and then after that, if you want, you can add whoever you need to add. Let me just find one guy because I couldn't remember his name, but I watched him play, and I was like, oh, this guy's. So, fun story, Michael Gallup might be back this week, so we'll see.
Oh, shit.
That's a possibility.
Dallas Cowboys, time to rise.
Oh, no.
Cooper Rush.
I hope not. But anyway.
Okay.
So, one of the guys that we definitely need to keep an eye on, I think, is Noah Brown with the Cowboys, right? He had 5 catches for 91 yards and a touchdown on 5 targets.
Ballin'.
Right?
Yeah.
And he just kind of came out of nowhere. Hopefully my boy Dalton Schultz's knee isn't that bad. Because if it is, I'm going to be very sad, and I'm going to have to make some ads on a couple teams. With that being said, this Noah Brown guy, go pick him off of waivers, right? Regardless of whether Michael Gallup. I'm not saying you necessarily have to start him. I think at right now at this point he's a flex option. If you need a wide receiver badly enough, flex him out. I would trust him enough with that. If not, hold him on your bench. I think he might be that number 2 guy, right? We'll see what happens when Gallup comes back. But Cooper Rush trusts this guy.
Yeah.
And it was obvious, right? With some of the throws. Now, one of them was a long 28-yard throw, but like there's no hesitancy. He just boomed it out to him. So, this is a guy I think you might be able to flex out, but wide receiver 3 territory is kind of where I have him right now. So he's one of my pickups off of waivers. The next one, I'm sure y'all have heard his name. The Jets went out and won a game. Garrett Wilson.
Oh, yes.
Look, man, he's
looking good.
He's looking really good, right? Let me see if I can just pull up his stats real quick. Let's see. Garrett Wilson, 14 targets, all right? Had 8 receptions. Not terrible, not amazing, a little bit over half, so you're cool with that. But 8 receptions for 102 yards and 2 touchdowns, right?
Wow.
Even without the touchdowns, I want that stat line all day, right? And obviously Joe Flacco just loves him, right? Elijah Moore only had 5. I don't know why they don't like Elijah Moore. I don't know if it's because maybe it was because the defenses were just keying in on Elijah Moore, right? And that freed up everybody else. Tyler Conklin had 9 targets on the Jets. But anyway, point being, Garrett Wilson is doing things on the field that remind me a lot of a young Justin Jefferson. I just want to say that. I know that's kind of, oh my God, are you really saying that? Look, he's looking the part. There's some Twitter rumors out there. Some guys on the Browns saying that he was scary and they wanted nothing to do with him, right? They're giving him high praise. So, just seeing the stat line: 8 catches, 102 yards, 2 touchdowns. I forget what his week 1 looked like. I'm about to look it up right now. Well, they played against the Ravens, so
Yeah.
that could
They
kind of
only
tell you
scored like
probably.
6 points. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, well, look, he had 4 catches for 52 yards on 8 targets,
But that's not bad for
which
a
is not bad
rookie.
for a
Yeah.
rookie, right?
Yeah.
Um,
In the first game.
so I'm gonna go ahead and say if he's on your waivers, snatch him up. And honestly, I think he'll get at least 5 targets per game,
Hmm.
and he'll probably do
I
something
mean,
with it.
right
So
now it looks like he's the #1 guy.
yeah. So well, I think he would be my waiver priority. He would be my number 1 on
Hmm.
waivers this week. He's the first guy I'm going after. Um,
Hmm.
Flex him out. Flex him out.
Yeah.
But I think if he has a few more games where he's pushing out big numbers, feel comfortable with wide receiver 2. Look, man,
And
it took Justin Jefferson maybe like half a year, and then after that, he was golden. Well, not even half a year,
yeah.
really. It was like week 5, week 6,
And
and
also, I'd say be patient. Even if he has like a bad game next week, Flacco's very up and down. I'm excited when Zach Wilson comes back. He's a slinger, they would call it. So I'm excited to see what he can do with
yeah,
Eric Wilson. So
yeah.
yeah,
And if Wilson does have another high game, and let's say you don't want to keep him, try to trade him. I guarantee
oh
you
yeah,
somebody out there is gonna listen to
bait.
fantasy podcasts like this, and they're gonna be like, "Oh, I really need to go get this guy." Um, so yeah, use him as trade bait, whatever you feel like. Maybe before the Sam comes back, right? Not Sam. Wilson
Zach,
comes back.
yeah,
Zach
yeah.
Wilson comes back. Um, Otherwise, keep him and use
I'm
him.
I'm a big Zach Wilson guy. He
Okay.
has to stay healthy and stay out of mom's bedrooms.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So next up on the list, Carson Wentz. If you need a
He's
quarterback,
been doing well.
he did well in this last game. Most of it came in the second half. I had Carson Wentz on one of my fantasy teams, and he scared the dog crap out of me for the first half of that because he only had like 3 or 4 points, something like
Yeah.
that, and then he just went off. Right. I think that has a lot to do with the personnel on the team and some people showing out.
Mhm.
So I'm going to say Carson Wentz, and I'm going to follow that up by saying Curtis Samuel, who is also a commander. He's been getting some work, right?
Yeah.
And Carson Wentz is throwing to him a good bit. Let me see if I can pull up his stats real quick. Um, and I say that because I think moving forward, Wentz, I have a hard time trusting Wentz every game. I'm just going to be honest with you. There's a lot of history
Oh
there
yeah.
of me just not trusting him. But
But I'll say that like even if he has a shitty game, it's almost like he always still does something like he might throw 3 picks, but he'll
yeah,
throw 3 touchdowns. You know?
yes, yes.
So
So he's a gamble, right? I'll say that he's kind of a gamble, but um,
if you are
if you're
desperate, like
hurting,
somebody
if you had Dak
say
Prescott
for
go down
say for
or
example, you drafted
Trey
Trey
Lance,
Lance in almost every league.
you might need Carson Wentz.
Yeah,
He might be
yeah,
the best quarterback on free agency.
yeah.
Curtis Samuel had 7 catches for 78 yards and a touchdown on 9 targets last week.
Yes.
So
And they also use him in kind of the Debo role where they'll give him a couple of
yeah,
carries
so he
every
did
game
have
too. So
he had one carry for 21 yards, so he got you an extra 2
it's
points
nice.
rushing, which is nice.
Yeah.
Look, this team, look, Scary Terry's still on it. I think Jahan Dotson could be a really good wide receiver, given some time. He's showing some flashes too. So
Yeah.
even Logan Thomas to an extent, I think is a
He's
tight end that
solid.
you can look at. It's gonna be really hard to just pick and choose any of these players from week to week because most of them I have them as flex options.
Yeah.
Even Scary Terry's been kind of defense has been keen on him, which I think is why Curtis Samuel is blowing up and things like this. But like Scary Terry, I'd probably put as a wide receiver 2 right now. Everyone else, flex option except for Thomas, I think you can put him as a starting tight end, but he's going to be that
Still
tight end
kind of
game.
iffy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're going to look at 4 or 5 catches, and you're hoping for a touchdown to really get you into double digits. So just keep that in mind. All right, next up, and this one's more of a rental, is what I'll say. Hey, hold on. I'm trying to clear off my list as I go. Scotty Miller, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Look, he played very well against a good Saints pass defense. Mike Evans is suspended for 1 game. Don't know if Chris Godwin's coming back. The Buccaneers signed my boy Cole Beasley, and he's on the practice squad. But he's on the practice squad right now, so we'll see what happens there.
Yeah,
we'll see what happens with Julio.
There's that rule now where teams are allowed to elevate 3 players from practice squad right before the game.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to wait and see if Julio can play or Godwin. If they can't, then he'll probably be elevated.
Yeah, and if Cole Beasley plays, look, man, you could probably start him as a flex guy. He's a slot monster. He's a poor man's Edelman.
He's a perfect Tom.
Like I think you could see a situation where he gets 6 catches for 70 yards, and then if he gets a touchdown, you're ecstatic. So just keep an eye on Cole Beasley. See if they promote him to active roster for the game. If you're hurting really bad for wide receiver, you can flex him out. Otherwise, I guess you could pick up Cole Beasley if you want to. But my point of this is keep an eye on him. Scotty Miller's the one you want to target, right? Scotty Miller is going to be the number 1 target, and he gets open enough. He's not going to be the best, but he'll be a good flex option if you need wide receiver depth, right? Now, once the other wide receivers come back, go ahead and kick him to the curb, put Miller back into the free agency where he belongs. But as long as most of those wide receivers are hurt, you can go ahead and start him. All right. One more Commanders player, real quick, who should be coming back maybe in the next couple weeks is Brian Robinson. Right? My boy got shot. Right? He looked good. Got shot in the knee. No major damage, but has to heal up. He could be coming back in the next couple of weeks. And regardless of the injury, we'll see what happens. Obviously, you want to keep an eye on that. But the Commanders really, really like him. And I think as soon as they can get him out, they're going to get him out. So if he's out there in free agency, pick him up right now. Even if you have to burn 1 bench spot for the next couple of weeks, he could be a potential league winner, if you ask me. If not, he could be a solid running back if you're hurting for running backs. So he's someone to look out for. I got 3 people left real quick, and then we'll go to Paul to see if he has anybody to add to this list. Evan Ingram, right? Terrible for the Giants, just didn't fit. Plays for the Jaguars now. Had a good week this week. Last week wasn't that great. I think what I'm going to point out is that he's gotten like 9 targets both weeks. Right? So if you're going to give me a tight end that's going to get 9 targets every week, I'm going to probably start them if I don't have one of those top echelon guys, right? So I'm not saying he's going to be great every week, but 9 targets. That's all I'm going to say. 9 targets, right? He doesn't have to be great. He just has to get the volume, right? He can get 9. He can get 5 catches for 50, and if he was the last tight end off the board and you grabbed him, well, hey, 10 points is nice for that kind of tight end, right?
Yeah.
So, he's someone to look out for. All the rest of these guys are going to be tight ends. Tyler Higbee, Rams. I think he's going to be solid week to week. Again, he's another one of those tight end guys, but I think you can get 4 or 5 catches a game. If Stafford's showing he likes to throw to him a little bit, so something to keep an eye on. Last but not least, I talked about him last week, but I will talk about him again this week. Gerald Everett. If you have not grabbed him from free agency, grab him. Even if you have a tight end, grab him. He's a good flex option at worst. He's good enough. I honestly do think if Herbert's playing, he's going to throw it to him. So. All right, Paul, you got anybody
All
else
right.
to add to this
Yeah.
list?
My first one would be a bit obvious. Tua Tagovailoa.
Tua
I,
Tagovailoa.
yeah, I see in a lot of leagues he's still sitting in the free agency, and I think if you need a quarterback, I think he's going to be solid. Don't expect 40 points, but the first week he had 17 points. Then this week he had 40. I think he's good for around 15 to 20 every week because how that offense is suited. He can just dump it off at times and it can break it out there for 60-yard run after the catch.
Yeah.
And so, second, a very similar playing style to Tua, and the same reason why I like Tua. The quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo. If you are desperate for a quarterback, he's actually usually a very stable starting quarterback just because he's always good for around 15 a game. And especially with the Deebo Samuel, you can just kind of, give him a few screens. Big one, Jordan Mason. He was the fourth string running back for the 49ers, but now with Elijah Mitchell and now TDP, both hurt, he's now the second string back for the Niners, and he's a big old dude, 240 pounds, and he's fast and elusive, and he's got vision. And I think that he'll probably see, 7 to 10 rushes this Sunday against the Broncos, because it's just right now we just have Jeff Wilson and then Marlon Mack, but he was just elevated off the practice squad. So I see Mason getting some carries, and he looks special in training camp. He looks special in preseason, so I'm excited to see what he looks like in real ball.
Yeah.
It's always hard to talk about. I'll say my value has gone down on George Kittle with the Lance injury. I thought that because of Lance, that meant for a big thing. But also, I mean, when Garoppolo was healthy, like his arm was live, him and Kittle did some great things. So like I said, I'm very optimistic about the shoulder surgery.
Mm-hmm.
His arm looked good. So, hopefully, if at least Kittle can finally play a game. Let's see, for the Dolphins, you should start Tyreek Hill. I think that would be a good choice.
Start Waddle.
Yeah.
You should also be starting Waddle every week. So I started Waddle in 2 leagues, and in 1 league I took him out, and I still won, but I could have won by more.
By a lot more, yeah. Yeah, I've done. It's funny. So far, I've either dominated in fantasy or I've gotten my butt kicked in fantasy. So I'm doing good in some leagues and doing not so good in other leagues. But I've just
scaredly like 1-1 in a lot of leagues. So
I've definitely had some bad luck. I mean, I was high on Elijah Mitchell in a bunch of leagues. Then he got hurt, and then Lance, and of course George Kittle that all got hurt. But yeah, let's see. I'm trying to think. For the Kansas City Chiefs, I still don't feel like any of those receivers are the number one guy. I mean, it's basically Kelsey, and then whoever is open is open. Mike Williams is good. I would say if you can pick up Olave, because it seems like the Saints definitely have him in the game plan, for better or for worse. He seems to be the second guy.
And look, I think look, I liked Olave. You know, I told people to get him, so I don't have any problem with saying that. I think you got to be patient with them, right?
Yeah.
And that's about the best you can do. So,
And I was going to look at some. Let's look at some defensive matchups. Who we should not start. So if you got this Steelers or Browns, I think that's a good start either way. Defensively, you're going to be okay. Oh God. I'd say if you have the Colts defense, you don't want to start them against the Kansas City Chiefs. The Dolphins defense so far has been actually bad, and they're playing the Bills this week, so I would not start there. I would Baltimore and the Patriots. That'll be an interesting game. Let's see here: Eagles, Commanders, Saints. I would definitely start the Saints defense against the Panthers. I feel like they'll do well there.
yeah.
Rams, yeah. Let's see here. I have a feeling that the Packers Buccaneers game is going to be low scoring. I just feel like it's going to be more of a defensive game because both those teams have very big issues at receiver right now. So, I'm interested to see that. And I feel like the Niners and Broncos could also be a very defensive game with
Yeah.
the Niners winning 75-0. But yeah, yes, indeed.
All
Excited
right.
for this week. First primetime game and back-to-back primetime game for the Niners.
Yep.
So that's exciting. It's exciting. Exciting times.
All right. Well,
Mm,
I think that's going to close us out for tonight, sir.
yes.
We definitely had a lot of stuff to say about the
Fantasy
49ers.
talk. Yeah.
And
Yes. Thanks. And,
and everything else. We will record another episode after this one. Obviously, we will cover the weekend games and we'll go over injury reports then. Maybe by then we'll have a little bit more of an idea of who might be playing this weekend, who might not. So y'all take it easy. I'm Trevor Blanchard. It's Fantasy Ambush.
I'm Paul.
Paul! That's right. That's right.
Yes.
So
Yes.
y'all have a good night.
Bye.